This is a message from your guides reading for the Andromedan. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and surround us in some protective space, like always, with I'm going to use both of them. So I have my obsidian and my purple fluorite. Okay, so you have a guide coming up, and there's a past life coming up right away. There's a feeling of you as a writer. You have this a typewriter where you have to like punch down on the keys and the paper comes up. One of those old typewriters. And you're somewhere cold. There's a fireplace. You have white skin, and it feels like you're very creative in the lifetime. You're always laughing, um, and you are joking around a lot. Feels like maybe 50s or something like that. There's a feeling of um, this. I don't know why there's that specific detail coming in, but it's a brass typewriter. It's a kind of brassy, kind of golden kind of color. I just keep seeing the letters popping up on the paper, the black letters. It feels like very firm paper, almost like there's a specific like paper that you're using that feels almost like it's harder, where it doesn't flop as much. I feel like you don't like it when the paper, um, it's like if you have a paper that's really light, then it comes up and it just starts like flopping over. For some reason, you don't like that. You want it to keep staying, staying up as it keeps going. And obviously, eventually it will fall over, but it feels like not as much as the other paper. Feels like even though you're laughing and playing, you have these like pet peeves. You have like things that just kind of bug you, and you have to fix them or figure out a way um, so that they are different and they're not going to bug you or bother you so much, it feels like. So you have this kind of like quirky personality a little bit. You have pet peeves. Again, it feels like you're in a cold area, and it feels like you're a woman. And I keep seeing a woman over and over. And you are writing, and there's also a feeling like you're dancing. Like you go out and you dance and you have friends that you go with, other girls, and it feels like you're in college, and it feels like they're all talking about getting married and you don't really want to do that. because you almost see it as this almost kind of binding type of thing where you can't really be free. On the one hand, it feels like you would like a relationship, um, but I feel like you want to be proper and you don't want to really be seen um, as like scandalous or something, like you have a partner that you're not married to. So that feels like that's not an option to you because of the time period. Um, and also, it feels like religion as well, Christianity, although it doesn't really feel like you partake in those beliefs exactly. Still, it's coming in with that word specifically, partake, for some reason. Um, like you don't partake of those beliefs, um, but you still feel like you have to abide by certain dogmas and understandings that others have. Even abide by, I don't know why, it's just coming in as very specific words, and not even that I would never say those words, but it's for some reason it's coming in with specific words. I don't know why. And you're dancing and cocktails. You're drinking like some kind of cocktails. Um, you're a little bit kind of on the wild side, but I almost feel like I have to put wild in quotes because it's the 50s, and not that there weren't people who were actually, wild, but it feels like you're kind of playful and free and enjoying yourself. Um, and you are seen a little bit that way, like there is that kind of side to you, but you tone it down enough where no one's really going to notice it, where it just seems like you're a girl in college and you're having fun, but you're not really like improper. So you have this certain way that you want to be seen. There's also a feeling like you judge others who are not really seen in that way, or who come across again as like kind of scandalous or promiscuous. Okay, I had to look up that one. Promiscuous is not really, I thought I knew what it meant, but promiscuous is not a word that I ever use, like ever, or that I really hear anybody use, like very rarely. Um, your guides are, for some reason, saying it in very specific words. There's something about a table coming in, a table, and the cloth on the table. The cloth has to go down on the table in a certain way. It has to be a certain color. I keep seeing white. For certain occasions, you use the white one. For certain occasion, you use another color. I kind of feel like blue, almost like a baby blue. And you keep using these two like tablecloth colors. And I feel like you're doing some photography as well. And part of this is even for your photography. Like on the one hand, you kind of have this idea that society has, like, I don't know how to say it, like in a stylistic way, okay? It's not like a societal programming. It's like society has this thing of like, oh, it would be heaven to be this, um, you know, wife who has these specific clothes and this dining table and this dinette set. Again, something that I would never say. um, and these specific items and this certain vacuum cleaner that they just came out with, um, which feels like completely crappy technology to us now, but then it feels like this was the thing and it was really popular because they had just come out with it and it was the most powerful vacuum cleaner and the laundry. They're getting better at building, washing machines, and it's like you can have one in your house now, and it's almost like standard. And these are like these kind of exciting things. It feels like everybody has a washer machine. This is so strange. Um, or a dryer, even things like an iron and an ironing board. It's like there are pictures. Um, and they're like very like stylized in a certain way and like poses and like the way that they're turning their head and um they have to look like extremely happy, and it feels almost like poetry to you. You're getting something across, you're saying something. And the funny thing is that you are totally painting a picture, which is the last thing that you would want to view any of this as, or that you would want to go through yourself. And I have to say it like go through because it doesn't just feel like I don't want to do that. It feels almost like an upsetting, almost traumatizing thing like, oh my God, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to put myself through that kind of um, marriage, just the concept of marriage. And I actually feel like you do end up getting married. I feel like you find the right guy and you kind of settle down and you have some kids. But I feel like he still kind of lets you be very free. And I don't feel like you get married until you're a little bit older, like maybe your 30s or something like that. And then it feels more like 60s. And it just feels like it's more open and allowing. He doesn't really think of women. Um, he does, and you do too. Like there's definitely societal programmings there because of the time period, but um, your sort of beliefs kind of fit together. Like you're not going too far for him, um, and he's not holding back too much for you in a sense. So you kind of mesh. I even feel like you've met this person, but I feel like they really wouldn't be a very good partner in this lifetime. I feel like their soul just has not really developed in the same way. And you may have felt a connection with them, but then it feels like they weren't really grasping spiritual concepts very deeply, or really like they ever would have thought of them on their own. You almost had to force it in a sense, which you're not going to do. You don't want to force your beliefs onto someone. Um, so that really wouldn't have worked. And I don't feel like they're a very good partner for you in this lifetime, but I feel like there was a connection there because you were remembering almost like a potential for something else or almost kind of someone else that they could be, and they just really aren't. And again, with the typing. Feels like the typing comes a little bit later. And it feels like you have a job. I feel like once your kids are a little bit, um, not very old, but a little bit older, you start dropping them off somewhere. And it feels like this is the 60s, so it feels like this is a little more doable, to think of you having a job, and this is a little bit more normal. But you're still kind of out there, but it feels like you have almost like a secretarial type of job, but then it feels like you write on the side, and your desk is like very clean, but in a particular way. Like it's not just clean, but you have designated positions on the desk for various things, and they have to go in their spot. So when you clean the desk, um, it's like if you had scissors, for instance, they would always go in one spot. You're not going to suddenly put the scissors in another spot where something else is supposed to go. And I'm seeing a glass of water. You have a glass of water, and that always goes in the same spot as well. I feel like there's more than one spot for the glass of water. There's more spots for the water because you have certain spaces which are free on the desk. But then there are some places where you don't put the water. It's like it has to be placed in a certain way. If it spills on certain things, that would be worse than if it's spilled on other things. But if it spills on you, that's okay. I feel like your guides just threw that in as almost like a joke or something. But they're saying that you can kind of see this side of yourself and that you can get also kind of frustrated when things are not going in a sort of exact way or in an exact order. Um, but I feel like during this lifetime, you didn't have any problem really with you with this thing that they've talked about of being kind of all over the place or unstructured. It's like you were so structured. And then on the other hand, you had this kind of wild, kind of playful side where you wanted to just throw your hands up in the air and dance around and not be too predictable. But they're saying that you were still predictable, um, in a sense, because it feels like your unpredictability was predictable. I don't know. That's how they're saying it. It also feels like there's this kind of sense sometimes, like where you have this kind of air, like, no, this is a certain way, and you kind of won't accept anything else, or you won't agree with someone else, or you won't agree with someone else's opinion sometimes. So it feels like this kind of leaks out into areas of opinion sometimes as well, which is, it feels like why you sometimes judge others. It feels like you don't judge so much like somebody who's like homeless or something like that. You think that maybe they have a mental issue. Um, Maybe even they got into some drugs or something like that. But even that, it feels like you don't judge as much. It feels like when somebody is on their feet or when they have a good life, um, it feels like then that's when you judge them. Like that's when you'll go that far in a sense. But for some reason, there's a feeling like you don't judge babies. I don't know why that's coming in. Or you don't judge animals. Um, or you don't judge people who seem innocent to you, or they just seem like they're in a bad way. Um, Even that, I don't say that. I don't know why that expression is coming in like that. But if somebody seems like well off or something, um, and then they have an issue like with drugs, or again, like they are promiscuous, um, or they don't really get along with others, or they're like really snobby or something. Um, Not that as much, but I feel like even that to a degree, if they're like too uptight, or even if somebody is self-centered and they could give to others, but it feels like you're kind of judging others. Sometimes it feels like you make a kind of snap decision about someone else and you kind of hold that against them, even if they kind of prove themselves to be different than you initially thought. um, it's almost like they would have to convince you, through trial and error, almost over time, of you seeing the person behave differently. Like maybe they got drunk once or something, but that's not really the way that they normally behave. Just as a for instance, you're going to hold that against them for maybe even years or months, depending on how well you know the person, until you just kind of let it go and think, okay, um, they're not like that wild and crazy. They like to have fun like I do. One night they drink too much. I feel like you've done that before. Um, but I feel like you kind of have a habit of keeping a limit on drinking because it would almost give you a bad rap. It would almost make you seem a certain way, like you don't want to be the drunk or something like that. So you can get drunk once or twice, and not like overboard, like where you're really drunk, you're like throwing up or something. More like, a little past tipsy, and you're not going to go any further than that, or you'll try not to once you're already drunk, obviously. But I feel like you hold together pretty well. Even even when you're under the influence of alcohol, it feels like you hold up kind of still pretty well. Um, there's this weird thing that your guides are bringing up, like a feeling almost like guys have almost like a bet, like like to see if they can get you to be with them, like to see if they can get you to like go home with them. And it feels like this is like when you're drunk, and it feels like they're not able to do it. So it feels like you have this standard that kind of, um, where you kind of set boundaries, sort of, um, in like in any state. I feel like you drive a car, so you must have some money. I feel like your parents are supporting you for your college. I feel like you're doing this like writing on the side already, before you got married and you got the secretary job, it feels like you were already writing, you were kind of doing that on the side. It feels like you had some stories that were published, and it feels like they weren't really that popular or that successful. It actually feels like you were more successful with your photography, and getting it in certain magazines and stuff. And you're also a bit more successful getting published in like magazines. And also, it feels like, especially because of your photography, then that kind of goes hand in hand with like you can go to a scene and you can look at it and see how can you kind of take pictures of it that get across a certain point or look a certain way where they would kind of catch the eye of somebody and they might want to put it in their magazine, and then you're able to kind of write something as well. So it kind of feels like you're even doing a little bit of like a journalism type of thing, which does feel like you're pretty into. The photography itself, it doesn't feel like you are as into, but you are kind of into placing things. Um, so it feels like you take this kind of quirky, kind of obsessive behavior that you have and you kind of turn it into something positive where you let it out in this other way of place this here and this here, for like creative, artistic purposes, and you take pictures of it. And it feels like you know how to work a camera very well, where you can get certain angles, um, and you can get certain angles and they look very nice, and people would want to put them in their magazine. And there's something about the way that you're dressed as well, and I feel like sometimes you're actually a stand-in in the photos, and you have like a camera that can actually shoot the pictures, it seems like. Um, I don't know if there's like something that you pull or what it is, because it feels like you go to the spot and then the camera will take the picture, um, maybe a bit later. Um, and it feels like even like sometimes it feels like even like you have someone push the button for you. Um, it feels like it might be both. I feel like there's a guy who kind of like helps you with it. I feel like he's the one that ends up being your husband. But I feel like you meet him in college and he helps you with your photography for a little bit. So this is obviously part of the reason that he was good with you, being more forward thinking, um, and more successful in some ways as far as career goes, where you didn't just completely give up the idea of career and get married. I don't even feel like he really would have wanted that. He wanted a girl who was a little bit different or kind of out there. Um, but I feel like the person in this lifetime, I don't feel like they really would want that. They don't really want that kind of pizzazz as much. It doesn't really feel like, um, they feel a little bit more almost normal, or your guides want to say boring, but not in a negative way, just like Um, not really as much into trying things or the same openness or freedom. But even in that life, this person was programmed definitely to a degree. And you were as well. And you wanted to seem proper. And it's not that that's all bad. Um, to have a certain standard for yourself and hold yourself in a certain vibration and not partake in lower things. That is definitely not a negative thing. That can definitely be an extremely positive thing, which can really help catapult you along your path to not really be like everybody else and go down the same road as everybody else and get drunk all the time and just be with every guy or girl that happens to be there, like a lot of people do this day and age. They don't understand, you know, how energies can affect them or the energies that you can pick up, or even that you can even be psychically attacked more easily if you're getting drunk all the time, um, things like that. Or you pick up on people's energy, the people that you're with, you pick up on their energy, especially in a very physical way like that. You're really connecting to their energy in a way where some of it is definitely going to brush onto you. So obviously, this is a very good thing, um, to like in the way of setting a standard for yourself and remaining of a pure higher vibration, being a higher vibrational person. That's the way that it can be very beneficial and good. But this way of sort of judging others and needing to so come across in a certain way so that she's not judged by others, or that if she is, it's in this certain way that she wants. Even if they see that in a negative way, still in the way that she would want them to view it, even if they see her as uptight or who knows what, which they probably wouldn't given her personality. But um, even if they do see, even if someone does see something wrong with her, um, it would be from this angle that she is giving off, and they don't happen to like that angle, but they're still seeing it in a way that she agrees with, or that she would prefer for them to see, that she would want them to see. So she tries to really put this one angle and this one view across to others, and she's smiling a lot. And she has this kind of like airy quality sometimes. Um, she can be fiery, definitely, and passionate, but it feels like it's kind of toned down. So I feel like there are some things that your guides want you to know about this person in this lifetime, um, to help you almost get an idea of areas that you can improve on in this lifetime, and even things that you can take, but maybe not be so obsessive with them, where it's almost like OCD or something. You have to have the cup in this certain spot, and you know, the picture can't be crooked, kind of OCD kind of thing. Um, okay, so yeah, I'm definitely to my time. Okay, so that is the end of this reading. Thank you very much for allowing me to do another reading for you and bring this message from your guides through. I truly hope that it has benefited you. Thank you very much. Namaste.